A note to listeners. The following podcast contains content that may not be suitable for all audiences.
I'll start with the backstory about Ng. So he grew up in Hong Kong. He came over to America around the age of 18, and that's when he joined the Marines. Just like his crime partner, Leonard Lake, he also joined the Marines, but they actually did not meet in the Marines. They actually met through a survivalist magazine answering an ad. So Charles was actually supposed to be another victim of Lake, but he turned accomplice.
For our listeners, we're up in mid-California, probably about southeast of Sacramento, in the middle of nowhere, where Leonard Lake's cabin, where all this horrible things happened. And we got a chance to see it today firsthand. We got permission from the current owner. No one lives there, but it's almost like it's frozen in time.
Yeah.
There's like everything is still there. You are listening to Partners in True Crime. We are your hosts, Rob and Cindy Dorfman. Hi, everyone. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts, even if it's one word.
And please subscribe to our website, www.partnersintruecrime. Follow us on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram to check out our weekly promos. We're also now on YouTube at Partners in True Crime. If you subscribe to our website, you'll be getting weekly emails from us and all kinds of promotions and things that we don't advertise on the podcast.
All right. Thanks for joining us again. We're not in our usual home studio recording this podcast. We're actually on location, and we're with Laura and Rob Dick, bounty hunter, and we're in a hotel room in the middle of the state of California, next to a Denny's, and we're doing this podcast live from there. And the reason we're here is because we've come up here this weekend because we got some information on some of Charles Ng's victims that are at the house where him and Leonard Lake lived and killed and buried people. So if that wasn't cheery enough for you to get you going, and we're also going to be talking about what we're doing up here as far as trying to find victims' remains, doing recon. Both Laura and Rob are going to be going to see Ng tomorrow. Hopefully they'll be able to get into the prison and talk to him to verify some of the locations. We did some photography, photographs. Hopefully he can pinpoint some of the places that he's talking about. So Laura, Rob, thanks for joining us again. This is fun stuff inside the hotel room.
Yeah.
Feels kind of weird, but we're gonna do it anyway.
Yeah.
Cozy.
Cozy. So first of all, Laura, give us a little backstory again on Ng and where we are right now in your interview process to extract information.
Yeah. All right, so I'll start with the backstory about Ng. So he grew up in Hong Kong.
There you go.
He came over to America around the age of 18, and that's when he joined the Marines. Just like his crime partner, Leonard Lake, he also joined the Marines, but they actually did not meet in the Marines. They actually met through a survivalist magazine answering an ad. So Charles was actually supposed to be another victim of Lake, but he turned accomplice. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't know
So
that. He was originally going to plot to kill him. So
Yes.
Leonard Lake was looking for people in a survivalist magazine.
Yeah. So a lot of times when they hunted, they looked in the ads. The family in San Francisco, they were answering an ad for to rent film equipment. So they actually wiped out the whole family just to take their film equipment.
So wait a minute. So they saw an ad in the newspaper to rent video equipment.
Yes.
Once these two got together. Well, let's go back. So how did they get together?
So they met through the ad, and he turned accomplice. Obviously, they found out they had the same, deviant sexual fantasies, just kind of like Bittaker and Norris, your guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. We see
Seem
the
to be
killing
duos.
pairs. The duos.
The duos.
Yeah.
Is this like a common thing? Like, what do they do? Just sit down, start talking to each other and say, we're both deviants, let's be friends?
Seems to be more common than we thought.
It's more
I
common,
really
yeah.
thought it was more of a one-off. You don't hear much about partners. It's usually husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, but not friends, killers. But
Yeah.
now, we've got a couple different ones that we've come across.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a lot.
It's actually a rare phenomenon in forensic psychology, but we just happen to have stumbled upon.
You got the trio.
Yeah. Seriously. Like the sickest
You got the
of
speed
sick.
freak killers. You got Charles Ng and Leonard Lake. You
Bittaker
got
and Norris.
Bittaker
Toolbox
Norris.
Killers.
I had Douglas Clark.
Yeah, the Sunset Strip Killers.
He was a duo. I think there's more. There are more?
Yeah, there's more. It's just like
Yeah.
I said, it's just when I came into the Speed Freak Killers, I thought that was just an oddity, but it just seems to be more common than we ever really knew.
Or at least in California, it seems to be.
And they kind of feed off each other too, as you see. So.
Oh, you also have Marlowe too.
Oh yeah, Marlo was a duo too.
That's right.
Yeah.
Although apparently she wasn't one of the killers. She was just being held hostage,
Yeah.
according to Marlowe.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, so get back to Ing.
So Ing meets Leonard Lake through
Yeah.
an ad
Through an
because Ing is a survivalist and so was Leonard Lake. So they just
Yes.
were like those kinds of people that believe that they have to build bunkers and live like military
like,
people.
and-
Kind of like preppers today.
Preppers. yeah.
Preppers, right, for doomsday. So there's the cabin in the woods, and Charles had went out to the cabin, and what's even weirder is he was still with his wife. This was Lake at the time, and he even moved Charlie in with him and his wife
So
In 2 different locations.
in 2 different locations. Yeah.
So Leonard Lake has a cabin with his wife.
Mm-hmm.
He meets Charles Ing through this ad for survivalist doomsday prepper type people.
Well, kind of maybe even back up just a minute, because when they met through the ad, when they were in the motel.
Yeah, they were at the motel. They weren't out here yet.
Yeah, they were actually, Lake and his wife were running a motel, and Ing moved in with them there, and that's where it started.
Yeah.
And then law enforcement raided the hotel, took them both into custody for weapons, which put Ing back into prison, in military prison. And then he finishes his sentence, gets out, and then rejoins Lake and the wife. And that's
At
when
the
they're in
cabin.
the cabin.
Okay, so when he 1st met Lake, Lake and his wife were living at a motel.
Yeah.
They were, how you live in and run it.
Yeah, they're managing it.
Yep.
They had just gotten kicked out of the cult where they had met. Yeah.
Wait, what cult?
They met in a cult.
Who did?
Lake and his wife.
What kind of cult?
Spiritual. I don't know.
Yeah, it was.
What'd they get kicked out for?
Doomsday.
Oh.
Him trying to build bunkers and his
Well,
taking
and
pictures, the
his
sexual pictures
Yeah,
of all the women trying to. Yeah.
he's one of those guys that every woman he ran into, he had to take naked pictures. Mm-hmm. So that got
Okay.
a little odd in that thing.
So how did he get the naked pictures? Did he spy on them?
No, he would talk him into it.
Oh, he would talk him into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they would do it.
Oh, he would ask like 12-year-old, 13-year-old girls too. Like everybody.
He had
Yeah.
and he had a relationship with the underage,
With the other 13-year-old girl. The parents had to send her away. Yeah.
and they continued to communicate, and then eventually hooked up again later.
Yeah.
And Leonard Lake's wife just kind of turned a blind eye, it seems like.
No,
Well-
she
Or she
participated.
participated.
Yeah, when she came into the picture, because his first wife
His
left
first wife-
because of that.
His first wife, he made her turn into a stripper. She didn't want to strip, and he made her participate in videos, snuff films. He he did some.
Yeah, and she got
She just
weirded
finally.
out and just was gone. But his latest one was kind of into those things, so willingly joined in.
Yeah, willingly. And what's weird is, so the second wife and the first wife owned their homes, or at least Carolyn, his second wife, at the cabin. Her parents owned that. Lake was able to get both properties. Like he took both properties from the women.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is how much control he exerted over them.
So he actually got it put in his name?
No,
He just took it over.
just took it over.
like a squatter, taking
Yes.
over a property.
Yes.
Said, I'm in like a tick, and I'm not moving.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
because his last wife, even they separated, but he still stayed in the cabin, and it was her dad's cabin, so he
Yeah.
still had possession.
Oh, wow. Okay. So after they got arrested at the motel for guns,
Yeah.
then they reconnected after they went to prison.
Well,
Yeah.
Ing went to prison because he had a sentence where he had escaped, so he owed time on the military side. So he went and did his, I think it was 2 years. Or
Yeah.
something.
In
And
the
then when he
military
got
prison.
out at the military prison, he immediately hooked back up with them.
And then he went to live with them in the cabin.
Correct.
My question is, at what point did he cross over from being a victim to an ally with Lake?
We'll never know that unless, Ing tells us tomorrow.
Yeah, and I don't even know if he, knows he was a victim or thought about it, because it was Lake. Lake was mainly killing people, getting their checks, getting their IDs. I don't know how he passes Ing, but anyway. And then somehow they become on the same side. They become a team.
I think they can sense one another. I really do.
Yeah, it's weird. We've talked about this. It's from working drug cases. You can go to a bar and a bunch of tweaks kind of gravitate towards each other. It's like they're into the same thing. They know what they're doing. You got two tweaks, different corners of the bar. It just seems like before the night's over, they're sharing a beer and ready to score somewhere. We've thought about that. Is that kind of the same thing in serial killers? Is there that thing where you're like, oh yeah, that guy does the same thing I do, And I mean,
Creeps, recognize other creeps.
yeah,
That's
something.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting backstory about how they met and how he was trolling for victims, and that's how he met him.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to know if he knows that he was a potential victim.
That is an interesting question.
Because when you asked him, because Lake killed his brother-in-law or his brother
His brother and his best man.
and his best man,
And supposedly now we just learned his nephew,
Yeah.
possibly too.
and then when you asked Ing, I remember you asking him about whether or not he thought Lake would ever kill him.
Yeah. And he was like, no. And
Yeah,
he was like,
and he said that real
Quick.
plain.
Yeah.
Like he had no concern for
no
that.
concern at all that Lake would ever kill him.
But that's also when he laughed because, Laura brought up and says, well,
Well,
but
he killed his own brother.
And he kind of laughed. And he's like, well, yeah, he did. And
That was never proven because they never found the brother, Donald.
right. And that was kind of confirmation to us that was a true statement. I mean, because it was just right off.
It was
without
right
thinking.
off, yeah, that Lake had killed the brother. He's like, well, yeah.
So Ing basically
Ing pretty much, copped to.
Confirmed that.
Yeah.
Lake had
confirmed
killed him.
that.
Yeah.
Because they weren't. Lake was still in prison when that happened, so we know Lake wasn't involved with that. But
Ing was still in prison.
I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah, Ing was still in
I know,
prison. I
it's
misspoke.
confusing. Yeah, Ing was still in prison with the brother and the best man, Charles Gunner.
Were killed.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ing was in prison when Leonard Lake's best man and his brother and Leonard Lake's brother were killed. So
Yes.
Leonard killed both of those
Correct.
people. But were they ever found, or was he ever convicted of that?
Charles Gunner was found in 1993 at the spot we just saw.
And that was his best man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The brother hasn't been found. That's what I'm saying. They just suspect he killed his brother, but the way he answered that question seems like, he knew that he killed his brother. I mean, there's probably a conversation between those two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Well, I think that's a good setup for kind of talking about what we're going to talk about next, which is for our listeners, we're up in mid-California, probably about southeast of Sacramento, in the middle of nowhere, where Leonard Lake's cabin, where all this horrible things happened. And we got a chance to see it today firsthand. We got permission from the current owner. No one lives there, but it's almost like it's frozen in time.
Yeah.
There's like everything is still there. It's almost like someone just picked up and walked away. It's like almost like a ghost house. Like there's certain things that are still there. There's moving equipment. There's earth moving equipment. There's the Laura. You looked inside the window and
Yeah.
you saw that chair. Describe what you saw there.
It looked like the chair he was sitting in. I don't think it was the exact chair, but it definitely looked like that same chair where he's sitting in the tape giving his manifesto. And the paintings on the wall were from like 1970s, it looked like. Yeah.
So they could be original.
It really looked like it was like frozen in time from like the early 80s or something.
Now, when you were talking to Ing prior to this trip, he was giving you information, correct? And that's
Yeah.
why we're there.
Yes.
So can you kind of bring the audience up to speed on the conversation you had with him and what we're going to do over the next couple of days, because we're up here for a few days and we had an opportunity to kind of do a recon search of the house. We walked around the outside.
And things progressed from there pretty drastically. And then I had to bring Rob in for safety concerns.
Yeah, it was pretty good because he's kind of unique. He doesn't have any outside contact with anybody. He doesn't have any friendships. A lot of these guys can do their own research, even though they don't have access to the internet. They have people outside that will look things up for them, send them pictures, screenshots, all kinds of things. So it was really important that they kept him away from all that, so Ing didn't know who she was.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of go in, just like let him get to know me first. He's fully aware I'm a criminologist, MPI work, everything now. But I said I need to take my time with him, just like I did with Bittaker. So we needed to keep him isolated for this time period, as I'm starting, building that trust and rapport with him, for the extraction. So it was a big operation inside the prison to even get him and to get to this point.
And then just his nature, he became just overly obsessed with her. And that's where it started looking like it becomes, and the danger factor kicks in, because a person like that hunts people for a living and is attracted to people for a certain reason. And all those things were coming out, and it was looking like he possibly might try something because he's in a place where he could, and what are you going to do?
Yeah, and then you also had the fact that they were moving him out of death row,
Right.
which is, he's protected there, and they're planning, they moved him now. They moved him to another prison, and now he's on general pop. So, and he's a high-value person, target there.
He's a target. And he knew that. He knew this was kind of, he conveyed that it was kind of
He
an
said
impending
to
death
one of the
for
inmates,
him.
I'm going to die. I know I'm going to die. He said that. So this was, I mean, anytime you're going on a cage in death row, these guys have nothing to lose, as is. But now the stakes were 10 times higher because now it's like they're really facing death. So it was different. This was a different operation than we've ever done before.
Yeah, because they, like she just said, they can do whatever they want. They're in a cage with you. They're not chained. The guards can't enter the cage no matter what. Safety has to be, there has to be safety for the guards, has to be safety for the public, for them to try to escape during an attack or something. I mean, we both know that going in, you sign your life away anyway. That's just how it is. But it became a big concern with what he was talking about, that this whole kind of fantasy that if he basically killed her and then he was going to die the next week or two, then they'll be together in the afterlife. And that was really a concern that he was believing.
Yeah.
And he was doing certain things that made it seem like it was going to be true, asking for certain cages in the back, coming up with a story, so.
Saying
Yeah, he was
carbon
he was
monoxide.
relentless. I mean,
He
we heard,
was.
and we played some of that phone call
Well,
on
and
our TikTok.
What scared me was he was saying to the COs, like, there's carbon monoxide in the front cages. I have to go in the back ones. There's no carbon monoxide in those cages, obviously, but I could see he was grooming. I was watching the patterns of a serial killer. So here he is grooming the correctional officers to put him in the back, like as every visit. So, because he has a religious woman who comes to meet with him. So even with her, just to groom the officers. So I saw what he was doing. Then a month before I came out, I had the inmates watching him very closely, and I said, I want you reporting back to me every single day. Twice a day they had to report to me. And they said he's gone completely isolated, and that's what really scared me, because that means he's gone deep into the fantasy. He's not interacting with people. He's just gone into his fantasy world.
He's ruminating.
Yeah. He's getting ready.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad none of that happened, and
Yeah.
he's safely behind bars still in his new prison. And it sounds like he's not too happy there, according to what you
No.
told me. He's a little freaked out because he's a target.
So, Rob, when you went in with Laura, what did you think of him?
Well, I only knew from her, interaction and what he was doing. And then one of the other inmates that is kind of close to him inside was giving me cues of what to look for, when he got agitated, when he got angry. And one of the big things was the pacing, and stuff that he would do. And so when I first saw him, I saw him a few minutes before her. We had kind of staggered ourselves coming in just to see how he'd react. And yeah, he was pissed. Like he might have had a good plan that was just shot now. And so that kind of reinforced that we're doing the right thing, doing it this way.
Because he was in, the second to last back cage. He was,
Yeah, he was
in
in
the
the back
cage he
cage.
wanted.
Yeah.
And he was
Yeah.
not happy to see somebody else. He expected just to have her by herself in that cage.
Yeah, he definitely was planning something bad.
All right. Well, it went well. You said that, I remember us telling us that the visit went better than expected. And now
Yeah.
you're he has a little bit of trust in you now.
A little bit. Like he said that first day I was on probation,
Mm-hmm.
with him. And
So,
he doesn't trust anybody. And then now in, subsequent calls, he said he'd trust me. I had told him same thing, that I have a legal background, and kind of went along with some of his things about this might not have been done right or whatever. So
cool.
we're hoping,
Okay, cool. And you guys are going to try to go see him tomorrow. Still waiting to find out what that's going to be about.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the house. Because it's the first time. Obviously, it's the first time you've been there. All of us have been there. We've seen the pictures and the photographs. And just to describe to our listeners, it's up on this mountain road, all the way up. We're not going to tell you exactly where it is, but it's a winding road. It's up in the middle of nowhere. There are neighbors, but they're kind of dotted around, and everyone has a lot of privacy there. And there's a lot of woods, a lot of hills, a lot of steep angles. So the only people that really go up there are people who live there, or people that are doing work there. There's no traffic through line or anything, so there's really no reason to go up there other than for those two reasons. But it's also, the house is off off the road, and it's up on a little hill. So we had to walk through this gate, and probably walk about 100 yards down this path, and then it's up on this little hill, this little bluff. Now, one of the things that Ing was telling Laura, and I don't know if he told you, it was about the horseshoe. Mm-hmm. Okay, so one of the first things about a horseshoe. Did he call it a driveway? He just said it's near the horseshoe.
No, he said it's like, how do you describe
horseshoe road driveway.
Yeah. So when you're coming up to the house, there is kind of a horseshoe kind of driveway that kind of loops around and goes up a little hill to the front door of the house. When the reason he was identifying that area because he said that's where a potential victim is.
Yeah.
Did he say specific person?
Paul Costner.
Paul Costner.
Yeah.
And the people that owned it before, that bought it from Lake's wife's family, right? I guess that's how it was sold. Mm-hmm. They bought it in the early 90s. The gentleman's now passed on. Mm-hmm. The mother, his wife is not living there, and they passed it on to their son, who doesn't live there either. And I don't know what he does it, but it's an abandoned house. So the main reason we wanted to go there is to kind of get a lay of the land before you guys go talk to Ing again. So you guys have a visual representation and also some photographic representation. Like we took a ton of photographs, took some drone shots, and really did kind of a diagram of the whole area so you can go in and you can talk to him and say, listen, because it's been how many years since he's been at that house? It's like 30 years, 34?
85. So
85.
Yeah.
Oh, so like 40 years.
Yeah.
Close to 40 years since he's been in that location. But the fact that he was able to tell you those little landmarks, that horseshoe, that was the first thing that stood out, which was kind of...
And the swinging gate. Which is right there in the horseshoe.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things too, is it's really hard, when you hear these things or when somebody gives you, kind of a treasure map, but just verbally how to get to some place. It's so much easier if you can go visualize it and have it in your head so that next time we go over the story, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I know exactly where that place is.
Yeah.
I know where that place is, in landmarks.
It took me 15 months with Bittaker, mailing back and forth the maps and like elevation. I mean, it's extensive.
Yeah, it's hard when you're
It's hard.
Yeah. But one other thing I forgot to mention when I was talking about the prior owner, when the owners bought it from them, they did they were doing some renovations, and they did find a body there.
Yeah, that was the best man.
That was the best man.
That was Gunner.
Yeah, it was Gunner, Charles Gunner.
And what's interesting about that is that the location of, how they found it was they had leveled off a space on the property and were doing a cement foundation for a new garage because they did some renovations, and that's when they found it. But the location is, to me, kind of unique because you have the bunker that doesn't exist today. The bunker's been gone now, but it's not too far from that, and it's still on the property. And it's obvious that, that was missed back then.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the first.
And that was very close to the cabin.
Yeah, it's right there.
It's right there.
So.
Yeah.
So when Ing and Lake were arrested, when law enforcement came in, they didn't see it. They didn't see Charles Gunner's body back then.
They missed
they
him.
never,
They missed it.
never
They
found
missed
it.
it.
Yeah.
And how many feet would you say that's away from the cabin?
Yeah.
Probably about maybe 50?
I would say 50.
50
yeah.
feet?
Yeah.
50 feet from the cabin. Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah,
how
and,
close.
and it, again, not trying to pick on law enforcement, but it happens so many times.
Oh, yeah.
Look at.
Well, the law enforcement that covers this area, what do they, how many officers they have? Like 5?
Well, and two, you got to think of the year. Technology.
Exactly.
It's
They were
such a
not
different
ready.
time. Yeah.
Even today, the population for this town is 428. I looked it up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just today. Yeah.
and
Imagine then.
And you think about just the way a recovery was done too. When we were talking a little bit ago about there's news footage where back then in 85 when officers holding a pile of bones going, look at all these bones we found. Like, today you don't do that.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a different time period.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they weren't ready for a huge body found like
no.
that. Oh, my God. Yeah,
not in this
nowadays.
area. They don't have a CSI team. They don't have that training. Like I said, they probably back then they probably had about 5 officers or deputies to cover this huge area.
And in that recovery, just coming up with multiple remains totaling 48 pounds of bones.
Mm-hmm.
They were overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And they still don't know, the number of victims. We have a number of possibles
Yeah.
and so many confirmed, but it's still double potential.
There
that are still
were
around.
15 girls. They found, what was it, 21 photographs
21 photos.
in the bunker. And only 6 of the females were found and identified dead.
There were a
And-
few that were found alive.
Yeah.
But-
yeah.
Yeah.
But there's 15 just of the photographs in the bunker of women who have never been identified,
Or
Plus
located or found.
located, anything.
Plus
Yeah.
Paul Costner, plus,
Plus Paul. There's still a lot of, if you tally it all up, that's why it's suspected over 25
25 to 30.
30, 25 to 30
Potential.
potentials. These are people we know.
And Ing was convicted of 11.
Yeah.
So,
But there were
Wow.
12 bodies found on the property.
right.
12 were found on the property. Ing was convicted of 11.
11.
There's still 25 to 30 of people that we,
Potentially
law
could be
enforcement,
somewhere.
It could be somewhere.
And they could easily be there. I mean, just from seeing
And that's
what
just,
we
but
saw
I mean,
today.
that's just what we know about.
Right.
Of like missing people. Like we have no idea the extent of how far these two have gone. I mean, they were killing coworkers, family members, friends. It's wild.
That's kind of the most strangest part to it, too. Is
I
that
know.
The amount of people connected to them they were
Connected
killing.
to them, just
Yeah, they normally don't do that.
No.
Serial killers.
No, they don't.
No, because people. But up here, it's like people can go missing, and back then, I mean, there's no cell phones. There's landlines. That's it.
Even today, there's no cell service up there for the most
There's
part.
no
I mean,
cell
one of
service,
us
yeah.
did, one of us
Yeah.
didn't. It's
and you
very
got to
remote.
remember they're getting people from San Francisco.
So they're
So they
taking
were
them out-
hunting. They were going to San Francisco to hunt people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 2 counties away, so then you have that issue too.
Yeah, you're 2
crossing a
counties
county
away.
line can cause a problem, much less multiple counties.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I just want to get, because you've been delving into him and talking to him for so long now. When you finally got to walk on that property and walk around, what was that like for you?
Well, Rob, you turned to me right before you two came, and you said to me, I remember seeing this news story as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Rob had remembered seeing it as a kid, like
Yeah, I
on the
remember.
news.
I remember 1985. That was front page news. Was their yard. The only time I'd ever seen it was on the newspaper back then, and on whatever news video was. And I don't even really remember news video. I never forgot that newspaper. Having the lines of the tape, and then them doing kind of a cross section to try to find bones and remains. And just always, especially as a kid, thinking about that. Multiple bodies, bones. Because I was young.
Well, it's also the 80s, and we didn't really hear about it as like the things that we hear about now.
Right.
We don't hear about these things in the 80s. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have any of this stuff.
Right.
It would have been terrifying. I mean, to be honest, it was terrifying going up there today.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like a house of horrors.
It looks like a horror movie set. We all said that. It looks straight out of a horror movie.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that intrigues me about this, and why I was glad that I got to be part of this with help Laura, was, the ones that I've been working, the duo, is on the other side of the mountain. Like, I've known this
They're
story.
20 minutes away.
In timeline, theirs ended when the other two began.
So when Ing and Leonard Lake stopped killing, that's when the Speed Freaks started on the other side of the mountain.
Well, we know they were 83, 84, somewhere in there.
There's a
So
little overlap.
there's just a little overlap. But
Wow.
what always bothered me is that, and potentially since I found bodies now, I was wrong, but the bodies for the Speed Freak killers were basically left where they were killed. Like, the crime was right there. Bodies were found. October 85, they started disappearing. And that's when it was all over the news about Leonard and Ing. So I was thinking, Leonard Lake and Charles Ing. So I was thinking at that time that, did they learn that, oh, maybe we should do this? Was that their change? Because it was a dramatic change at the same time this was in the news. But geographically, it's literally the other side of the mountain.
Wow.
But I mean, yeah, at 20 minutes away.
I mean, what are the odds of that happening?
I know.
Because that's 4 right there.
Yeah.
Right. There's 4 serial killers within a 20-mile radius operating at the same time.
In the same terrain.
With a body count almost up in the hundreds.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It's crazy to think about. All right. So, Laura, just tell us again some of your thoughts about when you're walking around that house. I mean, because I'm sure he's told you so many things about
You
the
know,
house.
it was it reminded me so much of Bittaker Norris when I went up in the mountains. It was familiar in a way because I'm hearing it from them so much. Like they're talking about it, and it's like when I'm doing the interviews, it's like I'm there, the way they're describing it. But then to actually be there, it's chilling because it's right there in front of you, and you have their words, playing in your head, of what the things they said and the things they have done, and like that keeps like that sound, their voices like goes like almost as a narration when I'm there. So it's like really even more chilling for me when I'm like walking past like the side door looking in those, and I was like, oh my god, was that when he was sitting in the chair? Oh my god, there's the backhoe? Oh my god, there's the bunker. So it's like, and then I'm hearing how he's describing it in my head too, so it's extra creepy for me.
Well, yeah,
Probably
because
for you too.
hasn't he gone into detail about things with
Yeah.
you? I don't know about you, but every time I go to the grocery store, I'm spending a lot more money on items than I used to. That's why we're excited to share our news. We've partnered with Factor Meal Prep to give you 50% off your grocery bill. Factor is a restaurant-quality meal prep service that we have been using for years.
Cindy would never let me eat a frozen dinner. That's why we love Factor. We can get delicious meals with fresh, natural ingredients delivered every week and have them ready on the table in 2 minutes. How's that for convenience?
If you're anything like me, you might be on a new diet every week. Are you doing keto, low-fat, gluten-free? No problem. You can choose your own menu and mix and match. You want pancakes, chili, spaghetti and meatballs, filet mignon? They have it all, and it's so good.
We've done the math, and Factor is way cheaper than the grocery store or eating out. Plus, every meal is packed with nutrition without sacrificing taste.
By supporting Factor, you help support the show. We can't thank you enough. Sign up and start saving now. Head to factormeals.com/PITC50 and use code PITC50 to get 50% off.
That's code PITC50 at factormeals.com/PITC50 to get 50% off now.
You've
Yeah.
really gotten him to open up. I mean, he really hasn't spoken.
He was exactly like Bittaker. He didn't say a word for 40 years. Just dead silent 40 years. Always Bittaker was blaming Roy, and then, Charlie's been blaming Lake. He still is. They both still did to a degree, or Bittaker did to a degree, and Charlie is to a degree. But what's funny is Charlie has never once said to me, I'm innocent. Never once. He tells everybody in the prison he is, but he's never said that once to me.
But he has told you about some of the murders.
Yeah, we got him.
Yeah.
talking.
There was the one moment where we discovered a small door underneath the house that had a little padlock on it.
I
Obviously,
think Cindy and I
Yeah,
nearly
we-
screamed.
we got footage of that.
We actually had, thank God we had that on camera.
We
It
were
was-
like, there's a crawl space back here.
I was
It
like,
really
guys,
looks
there's
like a horror movie.
basement. And Cindy's like, no, there's not. And I'm like, and there's a padlock on it.
What's behind that door?
And then I was like, oh, the John Wayne Gacy, because I like turned the corner and it was a crawl space, and I just saw like John Wayne Gacy's crawl space, and it looked just like that.
It's terrifying. Those poor victims,
Well,
those
it's-
poor little girls.
And it's weird too how you kind of cross over between other cases just by those visuals. Because
I know.
I was
Yeah, like
thinking when I
flashlight.
went under the deck, I was thinking the Paul Flores where the potentially Christian Smart was under the deck
Oh
of
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
his dad, and it was the kind of the same thing where you could crawl under it, but I mean we could almost walk under it.
Yeah.
Because of it being on the side of the hill.
Yeah. When the owner comes up Saturday, we have to ask him about that.
Yeah.
Down there. What's down there?
I'm curious, and I don't know if you know this since you grew up in this area and you do know a lot of law enforcement. How thorough were they searching that area?
Well, I mean, again, trying not to pick on anybody because I wasn't there, but
exactly. But
it
I'm just saying they didn't have the technology back then.
that's what I got to resort to because
Exactly.
some of it I can't explain. I mean, even on, one of Wes's victims, he was the only suspect, and we found the body, 26 years later on his property. They served a search warrant on his property. It's like, what happened then? Did you step over that freshly dug grave back then? I mean, how? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so again, I just don't know if it was technology, low, manpower, because
Yeah,
we're up here in the
bandwidth,
middle of nowhere,
And also, I mean, they got their guy.
Yeah.
And like that seems to be the running, type of motivation is when law enforcement gets the guy and they have enough to basically literally hang him, give him the death penalty. It's like, we're done. Let's move on to something else.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's where Laura comes in, and she's, and that's what she's trying to do is
And
trying to recover the missing ones, the ones for the families that they don't know about,
Yeah.
the ones that aren't even, that they're just listed as missing. We're not even sure if they're, they may have said that, oh yeah, I killed this person too, but where are they?
Right.
And
Well,
I think
And that's what Rob is doing the
I
same
was gonna
thing.
say,
And
we're
that's what
both doing
they're both doing this. And that's
Yeah.
what Rob was able to locate victims, 26 years after?
One was 14 years later and one was 26 years later.
Wow.
And that's, and that's something that I struggled with after the trial because, the DA, I got to know the DA on the case and I was like, so what's next? We got to get these families closure. And he's like, I know it sucks, but we're done. I mean, he said that. He said, we're done. He said, do you find something for me to prosecute? I'll prosecute.
Case books on their desk the next day. Yeah.
But other than that, we're not going to do anything.
I think in defense of law enforcement, it is a lack of manpower. There's a lack of resources. They don't have the ability or the time. We know a lot of people in law enforcement who feel terrible that they aren't able to continue on with cases that they know that there could possibly be victims out there, and they know they just can't do anything about it.
Well, and that's what I mean. I'm not trying to say that it's bad for them. I don't think any of us are, because there's a lot of good officers out there that, live with these cases.
Yeah.
The ones that they never could quite find. Like, the detective originally on the Speed Freak killers that I dealt with, we butt heads all the time, all through the process. And then when we actually found Cindy and Chevy, she came up and she said, you know what? No matter how many times we had differences, I have to say that you did what we couldn't do. And that was good.
That was great.
Because it
Yeah.
got done.
Yeah.
That's
because
great.
they won't. They can't. They don't have the bandwidth, and especially now.
Right.
Right now, it's very hard
Yeah.
to get them to.
Now all cold cases are, a retired officer
Yep.
who just has a passion, who comes back, usually donates their own time
Yeah.
to try to work it, but then they get pulled to something newer, something fresher, and
Yeah.
there's too many out there.
Well, we're going to have a lot more information about Charles Ng's house, or Leonard Lake and Charles Ng's house where they did all these killings, as we get deeper into it this weekend. But I also want to talk about some of the things that, because they moved Ng to another prison, he had a ton of stuff in his cell, and he had a bunch of boxes, and according to what you told us, they're only allowed to take one box with them. And it's a box about the size, what is it, like 2 by 2?
Yeah, well, it's 2 boxes. It's
Two
but,
boxes.
yeah, they can't bring a lot of their
So,
property.
yeah.
They had to condense to 4, but only 2 go with them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they have to decide what happens to the other 2, right?
No, the other 2 get shipped
They'll get
later.
Oh, they get shipped later.
But I mean, some of these guys have,
More than that. And so that's
More
the
than
stuff that
because
ends
just
up
their
out.
legal boxes can be
All right,
like
so-
8 boxes.
So how did you get a hold of his personal belongings box,
He sent it out. He sent it to me
and why?
to hold on to, which is kind of crazy because he's not getting out and I can't mail it back into him at the next prison. But actually, no, I should explain that. I did tell all the serial killers in an effort for me to get all their discoveries. I said, if you need me to hang on to anything for you, send it to me. I did. I offered that the second I heard about, the transfers. I was like, you guys can send me anything you want. They're like, nice try, or I'll go for the discoveries. No, but they did send me stuff. I got them all to sign over the power of attorneys, which is even better. But
Yeah.
Ng sent this property box out of just stuff he wanted to keep, or
Still keep, probably.
Still keep.
Yeah.
Things that meant stuff to him that
Yeah.
he couldn't carry in those 4 boxes.
Yeah.
He couldn't fit in. Mm-hmm.
Well, just for our listeners, these two, Rob and Laura, went through the box and they shot a video of it, and it's on our TikTok, and I think we pushed it onto a couple of our social media. So if you want to go check that out, you can check that out. But I want these guys to talk about some of the things that they found in that box. So why don't we just go through this and just kind of
Yeah.
give some of the salient points and items that you felt that were really telling about his personality, what's going on in his mind.
I think one of the things, at least for me, was he's very into origami, and it's very detailed, and folding paper and stuff, and you make these little cute animals, the panda bears, made you a German Shepherd, things like that, and it's like, that's very nice, it's very cute. Wait, who made this? It's just that whole thought process of, wow, this guy's killing people on one hand, but now he's folding little animals.
The thing is, he's right. When I saw that, I was like, this is really bizarre. This is like something my 8-year-old nephew would make. Like, why is he making these, like, little toy things, and
They
it's
all have like their like craft in prison because they'll sell it to like survive and stuff. Like some knit, some have origami, some have paintings, some have drawings.
Yeah, I guess with time you have an artistic
It actually goes
time
to
frame.
like a survival instinct. So like they'll trade that for soups or stamps or whatever. Yeah, or they'll do.
Yeah, it becomes contraband.
Yeah, exactly. So it's actually speaks to the survival.
Yeah, it's just I was just meant the difference between
Yeah.
something cute and nice from someone that has done some very horrible things.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Just doing teddy
Parallel,
bears.
You know?
no, it's just it's crazy. And what were some of the things that struck you as odd?
The Chucky doll. Well, it's funny because we call him Chucky, but stabbing the baby.
Oh God,
That I couldn't.
And that
believe.
was a drawing.
And those were he told
His-
me he did not like horror movies.
Yeah.
And then there were all these horror movie things. I was like, that's weird. And the Chucky doll stabbing the baby. But I think one thing that really shocked me was the picture of the guy running that looked just like Lake.
Yeah.
Out-
Wasn't there two?
Yeah, there were two of them.
Yeah, it was like a magazine footage
Yeah.
photo, and
But
the
it's
guy
like-
he didn't have a clothes on.
He didn't have
but
clothes on.
but it wasn't showing any of his naughty bits. It was just you could tell the guy was naked, but he did
Same
look like
Same
Lake.
body style, beard,
exactly
face.
bald
Yeah.
hair on the side.
And what was really weird about it is it's like, that's a tear out of a magazine. It's like you specifically tore that picture out because that was
Yeah.
something to you.
We were looking at the magazine tearouts like really closely because it's like, why did he save this? Why did he cut this out? What exactly was he thinking
even-
or looking at?
And even the things that he would like almost make his own magazine page, like
Yeah,
if it
like
was
his-
a magazine of 3 or 4 different things, he would take another of the same item, tear it out, and then glue it on that. So it made it one page of whatever he wanted to look at.
Yeah, what I thought was interesting is he had all these secret pouches with other pictures inside
Yeah.
of it. What's the deal with that?
Well, that's where the horror pictures were, and the one of Lake was in those little secret pouches.
Yeah, little like in the back of the book. or
Little
the front of the book,
envelopes.
little envelope where you stuck stuff.
That's actually kind of if the guards ever went in to search, like those little secret pouches sometimes are missed if they're flipping through books or something like that.
Looking
quick.
at the page.
Or he's trying to preserve them.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that too.
He doesn't want them to get damaged
Or taken.
or taken. Yeah, very bizarre. Very bizarre.
just from a psychological standpoint, what do you think those things mean that he's holding on to these things? Is there any significance to that in relation to what the horrific things that he did?
Well, we know about the babies and the Chucky doll stabbing the babies. That's what really creeped. Like, I mean,
Yeah, and it's
that's
weird
so
that
reminiscent
he
of his
told
crime.
he told her that he didn't like horror movies, but he had like
Yeah,
every
all of them.
horror person.
Yeah, like Freddy Krueger and
Jason
Stephen King,
Voorhees,
the
like
It
all-
guy.
Yeah, he had like a ton of
Voorhees.
them.
Yeah, everybody.
And what's weird is he had that clown picture that somebody had printed and mailed to him.
Hold on. He didn't like horror movies, but he acted as if he was in a horror movie.
Yeah.
But the way that he did these things with
Well,
people.
when you're starring in it,
When you're starring in it. Oh my
Right.
God.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, he's horrific. And that house was scary and looked like a horror movie. And those poor victims.
Yeah. Well, can we talk about what we
Yeah.
decide, like with the window? Should we talk?
No?
no, I'm not sure what you're talking about.
No.
Which window?
Oh, he's
What?
not. He's
The window.
Yeah, the window up on the top.
Oh,
The
the
two
neighbor.
houses. The two
Yeah.
The neighbor.
neighbors.
Oh,
So we did come up with something interesting when we were there. Laura recognized something that she pointed out. So we walked up the hill, and Laura, tell me a little bit about what you saw up there and how you were piecing this together.
Yeah. So there were two families that we know of that Lake and Ing killed, like just took out the entire family, 2 babies, young mothers, fathers, and one of the families lived right next door. They had just moved up from San Diego, the Dubs family, and she was home. The wife, she was really young, I think like 30, and she was at home with her baby. Her husband was at work, and it's supposedly she saw Lake disposing of a body, looked out her window and saw and got scared, obviously. She called her husband, and so the husband brought a friend home, and they had guns, and because they felt uneasy about Lake. And yeah, even the friend got taken out by Lake and Ing. I think Lake
took
and
all of them. Yeah,
the 2 men went to go confront Lake and
yeah. And they
Ing.
ended up dead, and then
they killed them, then they killed the baby. And they took her. And that's the video that is out, unfortunately, is she's saying, "Where's my baby?" And
actually being there and seeing, the house and potentially where she observed that, and which created all that. Because obviously they had to have seen her see it and then have a concern.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're taking out the people that are right next to you, which is kind of kind of close to home.
Yeah.
Very close.
Yeah, and from where you guys were standing, it's really close. You walked up on that bluff there where...
Well, the only way...
You could see it. You could see what the woman was seeing out of the window.
So the body would have been... So that's what we discovered. I said, wait a minute. If she looked out the window and saw him just, getting rid of a body, it couldn't be where we were,
It couldn't be on the lower side. It might...
Couldn't be the lower side. It had to
there.
have been up. So then I said, I don't know if they've ever looked up.
Yeah, we want to research over the...
We're going to do some research
crime
on where
diagrams.
exactly they've searched. Rob has some connects, so we need to find out what areas are searched. But I don't think anybody was going up.
Yeah.
Yes,
Where on that property,
seems-
Rob, do you know that the initial search was after they started taping it off and stuff? Where was the brunt of the remains that they found?
Well, that's what I want to find out. I want to find out where that burn area was, which could have been the one that we saw.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of in the front yard, if you describe it. But the main concentration of the search was in the bunker, and then in that area where they found the trench. And I believe that was on the lower side, but we want to confirm that as to where that was versus, because it was only one area. So I don't think it was both sides, and she's talking about up higher. So there may be, the upper part might not have been searched very well.
Because looking out the window, you wouldn't be able to see.
You wouldn't see the lower.
Part.
You would only see the higher part.
Upper.
Exactly.
So that would mean Lake would have had to have been disposing of the body up.
At the upper area, right where that camper was.
Right.
Right.
But what freaked me out the most was that sunken ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it felt weird.
Well, and something about that too, it's really, kind of got us very focused is that horseshoe thing, the description of the horseshoe and the fact that, he made the comment that he couldn't believe they didn't find him because it was really close to where they were looking.
Yeah, he said it was very close.
Very close. So if you look at where the bunker was and then where that soft spot was and that horseshoe, I mean, it might be right in the exact right place.
Yeah.
All I can say is if you take 2 federally accredited cadaver dogs up there, some badass cadaver dogs up there, I'm almost certain they're going to pinpoint a lot of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah, the only thing that's concerning, I think, is probably what could have thrown the dogs off originally, because I think they had dogs at one point. Nobody knows who, or I mean, we don't know who, but, there was the potential that they tried to burn the bodies and get it down to small bones and then kind of spread them out, which means, a dog's going to hit even on a little piece of bone. So I'm sure that was a big area that they're, okay, we got to hit here, let's dig, let's sift, let's see what we find. But, we know because the body found later, so many years later, that they didn't get everything.
Well, we know what he said about Paul, though.
Well, right, that's what I mean. Paul's probably still there,
they
for
said,
sure.
He didn't burn, they didn't burn a lot of him. There were still big parts of him. Big parts.
So that was their ration. They would kill them, they would burn them, and then bury them.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what they did for all of them?
We don't know.
We don't know, because there's bone fragments, too. They seem to have burned some more than others, or more thoroughly.
Or someone just buried, the 2 guys in the
The
sleeping
2 guys in
bags
sleeping bags were
just buried.
Yeah. So
And those are the ones we're looking for, too.
no, they were found.
They were found.
They were found.
But there's other people in possible sleeping bags up there as well?
No, that's just what we're thinking. I mean,
You're
if they did
thinking.
it before that way, maybe they did it again.
Yeah.
I mean, because you can contain something, put them in a sleeping bag, zip them up, now you got a carrying case.
What's creepy is I said I was going to go up to the cabins. This is months ago to Charlie. And he said, oh, take a picture in a sleeping bag for me. And it didn't click until we got off that call.
Oh, he wants you a picture of you in a sleeping bag?
Yeah, at the cabin.
I think that's pretty telling on
That's
what his
very
plan
telling.
is for you.
Yeah.
So just be careful.
Well,
what you
anybody,
say.
it sounds like.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Well,
it's...
I mean, that in the honeymoon phase, remember?
To the honeymoon cage
Yeah.
in the
He
back.
wanted to take her to the honeymoon cage, so.
Yeah.
Well, I got to, maybe we can get to speak with them on Saturday, but I got to speak to the neighbors across the street, and they were friends with Not Lake. They knew him as Charles Bernard, they said.
One of his AKAs.
He was going, I guess Charles came from Charles Gunner because he had taken his ID. But
So he would assume some of the IDs of the people he killed?
Yeah. He was driving around in Paul's car who we're looking for.
Yeah, when he got taken into custody, he produced an ID of one person, had a card to another person, and inside the car had a firearm registered to another person, all three missing.
That's how, they took him in.
So that was his MO. He was...
Yeah.
And then when they went to San Francisco and they took out that entire family, they were there just to steal the video equipment that those people were renting.
Yeah, but they went back, 24 hours later? And the neighbor saw them looting the house?
Got some more stuff.
They
were pretty brazen because they even did so much as, write letters to the family. You remember on some?
Yeah.
Where like they would take somebody and then write a letter to that family saying that, I met somebody,
fine, I left or something.
Gone.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
To try to keep that going, as well as cashing some of their checks. Some of them were receiving
his brother's disability check.
Disability checks. They were cashing that, assuming that identity. So that was giving them money. He even talked about the funding to build the bunker. That's how they were getting money.
Yeah, he was cashing like all these people's disability checks that he was killing. Yeah. And
then, of course, that gave him also identities to represent.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of it all tied back to him because obviously like that one letter that was sent, I don't know, it said it was like they were going into Tahoe or something, going to live up there forever, but yet it was sent from the Wilseyville post office right down the street.
Oh, wow.
So
They didn't think too clearly about that one.
No.
It was postage marked.
Yeah, postmarked from
Right
into the street.
Right
End of the street, down the street.
Can you imagine, though, not knowing your neighbor at all? I mean, there's all these shows that we see, like, neighbors who kill.
But then he found out that once the manifesto was found, he was going to kill him next to take his wife.
Yeah, because that was
So
probably
the neighbor, after he was arrested, found out in Lake's manifesto that he was on the hit list to be taken out.
Yeah, because they wanted the wife.
The wife.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's probably by them because, that's what they were doing. I mean, even in the apartments in San Francisco.
Yeah, they were just wiping out the
They were wiping out the people that were around.
Mm-hmm.
So they obviously reached out to them and, made a connection. And the next thing you know, taking them one by one.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, that is terrifying.
And they shot his dog, too, he told me. And he found out it was Lake who shot his dog because the manifesto, he talked about shooting the dog in the head. He found his dog at the end of the driveway, shot in the head, and it was because the dog was going across the street and
Sniffing bodies.
Digging up bones.
Digging up bones.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so tomorrow you're heading back in to see Ing to show him some of these photographs and spots to maybe get more of a clear idea of where some of these bodies are. And Laura, it's similar to Bittaker. I mean, do you think he's doing this because he's afraid he's going to die?
It's hard to say. I don't know how he's been this week because he went man down this week and he's been in the hospital suffering panic attacks, like I guess severe ones, what I'm hearing at least. So
on that one phone call when he first got there, he said it was quite a change.
He said it was like...
you get used to something for so long and then all of a sudden you're thrown into a different environment. He's already got the fears of possible death because of where he's going. So
right.
I think it all got to him and ends up in the medical.
Yeah, it's a different game because, the transfers and where he's at. It's a little bit different than Bittaker, but, I think it's going to actually work towards our benefit, though.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. I think it'll be something that he gets to be in the company of people he knows, friendly faces, if you will.
Well, he did say to me that one time, the last interview, what did he say? He was like, I can't give you everything yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me.
Why do you think he said that?
He goes, because I want you to keep coming back.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. So he's going to spoon feed you this stuff.
He's going to spoon feed.
Well, you had the same.
And that's a lot. Yeah, that's kind of common.
Yeah, that's what you do with Wesley Shermanstein. Same thing.
Yeah.
It's like, why,
Yeah, if you give it all up, then you think it's over in their mind.
Yeah. You just got to, reassure them. It's, no, we'll still...
Yeah, it's definitely a long game.
It's a long game. It is.
It's a really long game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, you guys.
Until they die. And, and then hopefully they give you some information before they die. Well, it sounds like Ing is opening up to you. you know. And I think what's really going to be crucial is when if you guys get an opportunity to go in there and show him some of those photographs of what we looked at today. Hopefully that'll help us zero in on some locations on Saturday when we go back there, when the owner's there.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to wait and see what's going on. But
I think Cindy should come in with us, with Ing.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. She just likes to mess with me. I see this.
yeah,
I mean, if I go in there,
She's going to wear jeans again.
I know what's going to happen because it's happened before. So that's why I'm hesitant to go inside.
Yeah.
I have like a beacon on my head. You don't understand.
What?
It's just, I get into those places and then it's,
negative energy.
They
all in
just
it, 'cause
come
she's
at
got,
me.
She's got light. She has
the
light
light.
energy.
they just come at me like it's unbelievable sometimes. I mean, it's sometimes so bad that I would say, my God, how am I supposed to do this work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she's an empath, and so toxic people are drawn to empaths, and so she.
I mean, it would
feels
be interesting. I'm curious to see what the devil's face looks like because to me, out of all the ones that we've ever done anything on, he just seems like he's the worst.
So wait a minute, what's that mean? Do we have dark energy?
No.
No.
No, but you guys are professional law enforcement people and criminologists. I'm not. I'm a creative producer, journalist. I'm not coming from the same angle. Like you have a very Laura's demeanor is very business and it's very like no nonsense. There's no getting through to she's not putting up with it and it's clear.
Yeah.
And Rob,
her small talk is very directive.
yeah,
It's
she's very, very
directive.
good with the small talk and knowing exactly what to say. And Rob, so are you. I mean, you have that demeanor.
Well, what's great is Laura's very tactical too.
That's what I'm saying. She's very
exactly.
tactical.
Well, you got to see some of my moves firsthand.
It's a psychotic chess game. It really is.
Yeah.
And it's tough to really kind of diagram unless you've actually experienced it or seen it. I was able to see it firsthand with David Carpenter.
Yeah. I think you got to see, because David was just in a mood that day, but you really got to see it because Charlie, we really had to rip open like a can that day. And
Oh, no, yeah, David was just performing for me.
he was like a performance.
Yeah, he was performing for me.
But one thing I do is once they start to share, see, they're devoid of any stimulation or touch. So once they start sharing, I'll do a light touch like that, right on the hand or the wrist or the knee. And the more they start to share, I'll be like, oh, great. And it's conditioning. It's like Pavlov for them to keep sharing.
Yeah, exactly.
Positive reinforcement.
Positive.
Exactly.
See, psychopaths actually respond very well to positive reinforcement. So you have to know how to
And
work them.
ironically, they're usually very well behaved inmates.
They are.
I mean, what I thought was interesting.
He makes that very clear.
What was really interesting is that box, everything was very meticulously packed.
He's actually,
Folded?
I've heard, disgusting and dirty, his cell. I've heard that.
And
Yeah.
Well, everything in that thing looked pretty well put together and folded, and I don't think the correctional officers did that.
no, but he talks about how, he's got a perfect record. He doesn't, lash out at anybody.
They function well in structure. Like, that's why they
Yeah.
function in military and prison.
Yeah, BTK was the same way, apparently. You go to his thing, and he does all this super meticulous, and behavior is perfect, and he gets extra chocolate pudding, because of his good behavior, and he's like, he creates this fake stock portfolio. He follows the stocks and created his own portfolio, and he manages it, and like completely psycho just to keep his head.
Well, the more structured of an environment they're in, it actually helps with taking away the impulse control. They don't have that free time to think for themselves. So that's why they function very well in, a structured environment like prison or military or that kind of thing.
Well, it's going to be a fascinating journey for the next couple of days for you guys. So we're interested to find out what you get from him tomorrow. And so let's cut this short, and then we'll just keep on going. And then we'll do another update for next week. So this will be on tomorrow. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming up.
Yes.
of course.
Great day.
Yeah, Well, it was a good day.
It was a good day.
It was a good day.
It's really interesting.
Hopefully, we'll find some victims, or at least find some leads to victims. So, this is like you said, it's a long game. I think probably if we get some information that's good, I think it may be worth coming back here with some cadaver dogs and really kind of seeing what we find.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Please visit our website where you can subscribe to the podcast, find show notes, and check out extra content from all of our podcasts. All rights reserved. This has been a production of 722 Media Content.